Tiger Woods, Russell Brand, Michael Douglas and David Duchovny have all reportedly suffered from it. But now psychologists are saying sex addiction is on the rise in ordinary Aussie homes.
Yeah, since the Tiger Woods cheating scandal broke, doctors say they are seeing 24 times more patients complaining of a sex addiction than before. Addicts say they recognise the same behaviour as Woods, and partners were prompted to check on suspicious actions, leading to a trip to the psychologist in many cases.
So for more, we're joined by psychologist Dr. Bella Elwood-Clayton and sexologist and relationship expert Nikki Goldstein. Good morning, one and all. Bella, we'll start with you. In the past, sex addiction, that was seen for, Hollywood, for the rich and famous. But what about ordinary clients, ordinary folk? Are you seeing more being treated for sex addiction, as the figures seem to indicate?
Right. Well, we are seeing an increase of cases to do with sexual addiction. But the question to ask is this a blanket label where if you don't feel like being faithful, then you can use this? Or is it something much more complex and to do with not the ability to be able to control your desires? The jury's still out.
Okay. Bella, do you think the well-publicised cases of sex addiction, we're talking Tiger Woods, David Duchovny, have contributed to the rise in this sort of stuff?
Well, what they have contributed to is a rise of the term. They've popularized sex addiction. So, if you happen to be having a trouble being sexually monogamous, you can wave the flag of addiction. That said, people do sometimes really suffer with not being able to control their sexual desires. So in a sense, these big media stories do legitimize their situation.
Okay. Nikki, doctors have said that since the Tiger Woods scandal broke, wives have been recognising symptoms in their partners. Now, I don't know what they would be necessarily, but is this a good thing that wives are picking up on this?
I think it's a good thing that it's shining light into such an important topic because it is a difficult conversation to have with a partner, but it's also one that's very important to have. However, wives need to be very careful when self-diagnosing or diagnosing their partners as a sex addict because it may just be an imbalance of sexual desire, which is something that's completely normal.
Do many women get treated for sex addiction, or is this exclusively in the male domain?
Well, it's not quite exclusively in the male domain, but men certainly do face it more so than women. However, what we're seeing is, as the rules cross-culturally become less stringent about female sexuality, there's a lot more variation about female sexual behaviour.
Okay, Nikki, why is the term sex addiction dangerous, do you think?
Well, it takes away the excuse and it takes away the it gives an excuse and it takes away the responsibility for the behaviour. So the person who is a sex addict is now sometimes seen as a victim, and that could be used as an explanation for something like cheating or infidelity.
Okay. Hey, Bella, sex addiction is not currently recognised as an official psychological diagnosis. Should it be, or is it too hard to measure? Is there too much grey in this area?
Well, that's exactly right. The DSM-4, which is basically the Bible of mental health, is not recognizing sex addiction as a mental disorder. And until they do, I'm not convinced. I think really there needs to be a lot more case studies and research before we can say one way or the other.
Nikki, is it possible that modern technology is just making it easier for partners to cheat on a regular basis than ever before? Because they have got mobile phones, they have got emails.
Yeah, I think it's definitely making it a lot easier, especially with the introduction of pornography, because it's rife on the internet and it is something that feeds a sexual addiction.
Pornography does?
Pornography.
Is that proven, is it?
Yes.
Right, okay.
It can feed a sexual compulsion. It's another way of also gaining into these behaviours. But you've also got dating websites that make it a lot easier to set up these casual sexual encounters. And now with an iPhone, we can do both at the same time. But it's also very dangerous. You can get caught a lot easier. For example, Shane Warne and the infamous texting.
Hey, Nikki, what are the normal levels of sexual behaviour? What do we say? What's the textbook tell us? What's normal? What's right?
Well, I think it's hard to define exactly what normal is because when it comes to sexuality, normal is what is different for each individual person. So what's normal for Kylie may be different for Larry. So what we need to look at...
Thank goodness for that. Seriously, I'm being totally honest with you. Thank goodness for that.
Well, Kylie might be having sex 5 times a day and Larry might think that's an addiction. So it's very much subjective. What we need to look at, what we do need to
You're
look
making
at...
him uncomfortable.
I'm using that in the female term. What we do need to look at is when it becomes a problem. And it becomes a problem for the individual when they say it's a problem. So if it starts to interfere with their daily life, that's when we really need to start looking for professional help.
So Kylie at 5 times a day could be normal?
Exactly.
I barely have time to
get to
I barely have time to get to the supermarket, let alone be having
I
sex.
call it girl power.
With sex 5 times a day. Nikki, thank you very much, and Bella, thank you too.
Thank you.
Ahead for you.
We're going to finish this program shortly. You've got a busy day ahead.